Today we're going to focus on a weapon that has left a lasting mark on modern warfare, the FIM-92 Stinger missile, and its role in one of the most significant conflicts of the late 20th century, the Soviet-Afghan War. So grab your gear, take a seat, and let's break down the history and characteristics of the Stinger and why it became such a pivotal asset for the Afghan Mujahideen and their fight against the Soviet forces. FIM-92 Stinger is a man-portable, shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile deployed by the United States in the 1970s as part of a response to the growing threat of advanced enemy aircraft, particularly those used by the Soviet Union. The Stinger was designed to be a more effective, portable alternative to its predecessor, the Red-Eye missile, which was proving less and less reliable in the field. Developed by General Dynamics, now Raytheon, the Stinger was designed to target enemy aircraft at a short to medium range using infrared homing technology to lock on to the heat signature of a plane's engines. The missile is fire and forget, meaning that once launched, the operator does not need to track the target. It is simple, yet highly effective. The FIM-92 Stinger has an overall weight of 23 pounds with the launcher included. It uses a high-explosive fragmentation warhead and has an infrared homing guidance system. The maximum effective range is approximately 3 miles, and it has a maximum effective altitude of 12,500 feet and travels up to a Mach speed of 2.2. From 1979 to 1989, we had the Soviet-Afghan War. It was a brutal, bloody conflict that saw the Soviet Union invade Afghanistan to prop up a communist government facing insurgent groups. The Soviet military quickly became bogged down in a guerrilla warfare against a variety of insurgents, the most notable being the Afghan Mujahideen, a collection of fighters from various factions united by their desire to rid their country of the Soviet invaders. For the Soviets, air superiority was crucial. The Soviet Hind helicopters and the Su-25 Frogfoot ground attack planes dominated the skies, giving them an overwhelming advantage in the early years of the war. The Mujahideen were lightly armored and lacked the heavy artillery necessary to counter this aerial threat. This is where the Stinger comes in. In the mid-1980s, the United States, in its Cold War rivalry with the Soviet Union, began providing military support to the Afghan Mujahideen through Operation Cyclone. This covert operation funneled weapons and supplies, including the Stinger missiles, to the rebels. The Stinger missile gave the Mujahideen a game-changing weapon capable of knocking out Soviet aircraft in a way that they had not been possible before. Before the introduction of the Stinger, the Soviet helicopters and aircraft were devastating the Afghan fighters, but the Stinger missile immediately leveled the playing field. The first usage of the Stinger missile in Afghanistan occurred in 1986, and by all accounts, it was a game-changer. The missile's infrared guidance system made it harder for aircraft to evade once locked on, and the Stinger could be fired from the shoulder, giving the Mujahideen a highly mobile, guerrilla-style counter-attack offensive against the Soviet air superiority. The introduction of the Stinger also had a psychological effect on Soviet pilots and their commanders. The Hind helicopters, once considered invulnerable, were now being hunted. Reports indicate that by the end of the war, the Soviet Union had lost nearly 300 helicopters, a significant portion of which were taken down by the Stinger. One of the most famous incidents was the downing of a Soviet Mi-8 helicopter in 1986, which marked the first confirmed kill by a Stinger missile. But the Stinger missile's effects went beyond just the downing of the aircraft. The knowledge that the Mujahideen had a weapon capable of knocking out Soviet aircraft forced the Soviets to adjust their tactics, flying higher and avoiding hot zones, which limited their effectiveness, allowing the Mujahideen to gain more ground in the conflict. By the time the Soviets withdrew from Afghanistan in 1989, the Stinger had proven itself as one of the key weapons that helped tip the balance in favor of the Mujahideen. It is no exaggeration to say that the Stinger played a critical role in the eventual Soviet defeat. The Stinger's success in Afghanistan was undeniable, but its proliferation posed a new problem. As the Soviet Union withdrew, many Stingers that were supplied to the Mujahideen ended up on the black market. Some of these missiles were even used in conflicts in other regions, creating a new wave of concerns about man-portable surface-to-air missiles in the hands of non-state actors. In the decades since, the Stinger has been used in various conflicts around the world. It remains one of the most famous examples of how a weapon can change the course of a war. But this also highlights the complexity of arms proliferation, as these weapons, originally intended for one purpose, often ended up in unintended hands. In the U.S., the Stinger continues to be a key part of our air defense arsenal, although its role has evolved with more advanced systems coming into play. And this wraps up today's episode of the FIM-92 Stinger and its pivotal role in the Soviet-Afghan War. Whether it was changing the tide of war or simply illustrating the complex dynamics of Cold War politics, the Stinger proved to be more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of how technology can shape history. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe. As always, I'm your host, Xanatos, and this has been an episode of Zan's Weapon Depot. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the military weapons that define history. Semper Fi.